Welcome to City Life. Coming up today on the programme, Earnest Duval from C.O.R.E, Nick from Rolleston Vets and Anna Crighton to talk about our heritage buildings. But first, a man with a big job ahead of him, Roger Sutton. Good to have you here on City Life.
Good morning.
Now, this has been a big first week for you. How's it going?
It has. I mean, I had a week off before this week between jobs, and I sort of sat down and tried to plan out what was going to happen to me in that first few days and that first week. And I was in the office for only about 6 hours. I got there early and I was out of there by 1 o'clock, and I haven't been back in there since, really. So it has been frustrating, but it's been a lot more frustrating for a lot of other people out there. You know, a lot of people's lives have become more difficult again, and it makes me much more determined to get this recovery going as quickly as we can.
Now, no state of emergency was declared. What does this mean?
It meant that all the emergency services, all the different organisations were able to cope with the resources they had without a state of emergency being declared. I think the police and the fire in particular said they were coping with the resources they had. I think the city felt they were able to bring in extra resources from outside to get the water and the sewage going without calling on, those emergency powers. And the CERA legislation, the legislation I operate under, also does give me powers necessary to close off streets and so on if necessary. So it was, and I think there was also a feeling that we could declare a state of emergency again. It's just another headline saying life is falling apart, and let's try and keep people as calm as we can.
Okay, so the Prime Minister has said that thousands of homes will go. What do you have to say about this?
Well, we're still working through exactly which areas, and we're trying to put together a package for everybody. Our concern is that unless we've got a really complete package together, unless we really understand the detail, we don't want to be making any announcements. And if I said to your uncle or your aunt that, gee, it looks like you're going, and they start saying, oh, well, great, I'm going to start, buying that property to live near you or whatever. And then a month later we come and say, well, actually, we now finished the engineering work, or 2 weeks later, and actually you're not going. That would be very, very difficult. So we want to give the information to people in as complete a way as possible. And we also want to have worked out financially where people are as well. We're working with the insurers, with the EQC, and with these big international reinsurance companies who operate from the other side of the world. And that's difficult. But I've got to say, all the players, the insurance companies, the reinsurers, these big guys are being really constructive. They know people's lives are hanging in the balance, and we're working very well with them. It's just there's a lot of parties to deal with. There's something like 50 or 100 reinsurers internationally we have to try and work with, and that takes time. But also, we're still doing the engineering. Tonkin and Taylor, the engineers, they've had like 250 field engineers out there doing this work, and they've still got a lot of people out there doing measurements. There have been helicopters and aeroplanes flying over the city over the last few days doing measurements, so we're trying to bring it all back together again. But that doesn't help people out there who want answers, who are standing, looking out their front windows in the morning, seeing water and silt outside their front door.
Okay. Are you happy with how EQC is going with their progress?
I haven't caught up in any detail. I think some people give them quite a hard time over transactions being slow or whatever, but they're dealing with a massive number of claims. There's a huge amount of work going on out there. I just reflect my neighbours the other day had been complaining about their bricks from their garage were still lying around, and someone from EQC turned up the other day and just quietly took them away and got on with it. So stuff is happening out there, but a lot of people will be getting frustrated. But I think in an overall sense, I think EQC is doing a good job. Okay,
let's look at things like the red zone. You must be happy that it was still closed off. I mean, with the rest of the destruction that happened inside there.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have felt a lot of frustration since February the 22nd, having very restricted access. And I think what's happened really with this event was that those calls we made had been correct. My demolition manager was actually inside the red zone after that 5 to have a look and just see what happened to some of the buildings, and he very nearly got squashed when that 6 happened, when buildings started coming down around him. So, I mean, there's a balance there, and a lot of people always feel we've got the balance wrong, but I think we've got to get it a bit right. We're probably going to leave the CBD shut for at least another week to almost nobody, while we bring down buildings that are just in a very precarious state that we know that are going to make it dangerous for anybody else to be in there. So, yeah.
With the aftershocks on Monday, does this take us back to the beginning of, how we're going after February, sort of the clean-up? Does this take us right back, do you think?
Well, no, I think it's going to slow us down a little bit. I mean, after February the 22nd, there was something like 900 CBD buildings that had to come down. This maybe adds about another 100 to that total, so it's more. But, so some of the big jobs still have to be done, some of those big jobs which are just so jolly big and hold everything else up. Things like the Grand Chancellor still has to be done. We haven't got any other, it's not like the PwC building or anything like that has suddenly become marginal, it's going to have to come down. But, you know, some of the other buildings, I think the Grand Chancellor's going to have to come down a bit more quickly. But it is frustrating for everybody. But I think right now my thoughts are much more on the people in the suburbs, the people with water and silt outside their houses. Life is really difficult and frustrating for them right now.
It sure is. What do you say to the people in the eastern suburbs?
You're just going to have to be a bit more patient, I'm afraid. We want to give people a package of information that does give them some certainty, that allows them to make decisions and move on. And us giving half-baked answers we don't think is going to be helpful. We're working as hard as we can, as fast as we can, and I'm going to try and meet some of those residents groups in the next few days. But I just keep on getting other issues thrown at me at the moment. It's hard for me to get out of the office at the moment or get away from my car, which is where I'm doing most of my work at the moment.
In your car? Yeah,
in the car.
You're used to your bike.
I had an interview, a TV interview to do first thing at 7 o'clock this morning, and I just thought actually getting my bike and trying to bike around those eastern suburbs with some of those big sinkholes, I was going to get myself hurt. So I'm in the car. Okay.
Any idea when the eastern suburbs will, know anything more?
I wish I could give them a date. I can't. I'm sorry.
All right. Okay. Those thinking about leaving the city because of this, this was the last straw. What do you say to them?
Well, I think there's a lot of people who are very tired, but for those who aren't tired, think very carefully. We're going to have, a lot of the key assets are still here. Your friends and family are still here. The great parks are here. Access to the mountains are still here. The easterly still blows through the summer. But, the heart of the city, a lot of those great things are still here. And I think a lot of those great facilities are still here. But things like the restaurants, those other things we do are coming back. But, I wouldn't move to Wellington at the moment. I think Wellington's a much more dangerous city than Christchurch.
Okay.
So, stay here, hang in there, and let's make a great place.
All right, finally, what's the focus for CERA right now?
Pretty much the land stuff. These land stuff in the eastern suburbs and, secondly, the demolition stuff. And then really working with the other agencies, people like the council, whose responsibility is to get the water and the sewage again. Okay. And they've got a big job, and I think they're doing really well. It's frustrating, but guys out there are working right now. Very hard conditions.
And the rock faces in Sumner?
I saw them in the land issues as well. And that's much more a city council issue than our issue, but we're working with the city council to try and give people finality there, because that's really scary, Very, very difficult.
All right, Roger, thank you so much for coming on the program. Good luck. Now I'd like to welcome to City Life Jarrod from Armstrong Prestige. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, good morning.
So tell me, what are you up to tonight?
Tonight we are holding a charity auction called Rev Up for Christchurch, which has been instigated through Mercedes-Benz Asia Pacific. Have very, very generously donated a brand new Mercedes-Benz C.O.R.E worth $170,000 to show their form of support to help local business in Canterbury.
Wow, that is amazing.
It's fantastic, yeah.
So that is the aim of it, to raise money for Christchurch?
The aim of it is to raise money for Christchurch. So we, along with Mercedes-Benz, had decided that we really wanted to help business and local business in Canterbury and get everyone back up and running. And we saw a really good fit with the Canterbury Business Recovery Trust, helping small and local businesses keep people employed, keep people here local, get businesses going that we deal with on a daily basis perhaps as well. So really just trying to help people out. So
that's the very reason that you've chosen that organisation?
It is indeed, yeah, it is.
Okay, so tell me about the Mercedes-Benz that... actually, we've got a picture of it, so shall we bring that graphic up?
Bring the picture up.
And then oh gosh, that's what I want. I think I would like to auction that one.
I'm sure you can bid.
yeah. Well, I don't know how much money I could put up for it, but... What a beautiful car. Tell me about that.
Well, it's a new model to our range, so it's called the C.O.R.E, which is a four-door coupe. It's brand new, obviously, valued at $170,000. Absolute luxury, four-door coupe for seating of 4 people, just absolute luxury. Fantastic.
So why has this company given this car to Christchurch?
Well, Mercedes-Benz and Armstrong Prestige obviously have a fantastic partnership. We've been selling the brand for a little over 10 years now. They asked how they could help Christchurch in their time of need and offered a car to be auctioned. Perfect with the release of this new model, and we put all this together in a short space of time, in about 3 weeks actually. So we've had a lot of our brand partners as well who have come to support us for the night. To give you an idea, Partridge Jewellers, good customers and friends of Rick Armstrong's. They're donating a Rolex watch for the night. Johnny Swass, who's a great little local operator.
Yep.
His restaurant was obviously quite badly damaged. He has donated a 10-course menu for 10 people to cook at their home. So, I mean, the value on that, what do you put on that?
Priceless.
Priceless. So there's all sorts of good little things like that are going to be available on the night as well to auction. So we're aiming to raise over $200,000 for the night to donate to local business recovery trust. Yeah.
How much interest is there already in this car?
There's been a fair bit. There's been a few people calling through the showroom and having a look. We've actually got it sitting in Merivale Mall at the moment on display, so people have been able to pick up flyers, have a look around the car, see what's available for auction as well. So, yeah, there's been a few phone calls.
I can imagine. Now, if I am thinking about, bidding for this car,
yes.
What sort of finance options are there for me?
Well, you could dig into the chequebook. Or this morning, Mercedes-Benz Financial Services, who are also a part of Mercedes-Benz, they have offered to finance up to $150,000, 12 months interest-free, as a bit of a kicker. So you don't have to come up with a whole lot on the night. There are ways which we can arrange that. So yeah,
okay.
We're trying to make it as easy as possible.
All right.
We want it to sell on the night. So,
yeah, definitely. Okay. Again, where is it, and how can we get our tickets?
Where is it? It's at 6 Detroit Place, which is Armstrong Prestige, right at the Morehouse Overbridge, and 7:30. And tickets can be bought directly from Armstrong Prestige if you call us there on 343-2468.
All right.
We can do that, or look up our website, armstrongprestige.com. We'll be able to facilitate the tickets. So the more the merrier. Yeah. There'll be something for everybody. So there's prizes from $50 right through to $1,000 in spot prizes and things. So there's lots of different things available for everyone. So everyone can bid.
Okay, that sounds like a lot of fun. Jarrod, thank you so much for coming on the program.
No worries, Kanita. Thank you very much.
We'll be back after this break. Welcome back to City Life, and I'd like to welcome Earnest from C.O.R.E. Nice to have you here on the program.
It's a pleasure to be here, thank you.
Tell me about C.O.R.E.
Well, C.O.R.E. stands for City Owners Rebuild Entity, and it consists of about 170 to 180 inner city property owners who collectively own about probably $2 billion worth of property.
So what's the main aim of this group?
Well, the main aim is really to communicate our concerns and to facilitate better communication with the authorities.
Okay, and how's it going so far?
It's going pretty well. We're engaged with CCP, which is the Central City Planning team. We're also represented at the Central City Business and Property Owners Group, which is a council-convened entity. So we seem to be getting quite a bit of traction.
So this group has been formed post-earthquake. I mean,
yes.
This is something you never would have thought you'd have to do. What's it like?
Well, it's been good, actually. It was formed by Dean Marshall and myself essentially over a cup of coffee, and we just virally emailed a group of owners and told them to send it on, and if you're a property owner in the Central City, you're entitled to be part of the group. So we've had 2 meetings so far. They've been very well attended, and we've formulated a draft submission which has been ratified, and that's been sent to CERA, Ngāi Tahu and the City Council.
Okay, and what's their response been?
The City Council, it's been good. We haven't had a formal response from CERA or Ngāi Tahu, but many of the recommendations in the submission seem to be integrated into a lot of the planning proposals that are being formulated at the moment.
Okay, let's look at some of the buildings that you own, that
yes.
you're part of. Which ones are they?
Well, a number of smaller ones, but primarily Pacific Tower, which is a 23-storey building in Gloucester Street, and it's the tallest building in the South Island. Well, if it isn't quite the tallest, it probably will be the tallest fairly soon, with the demolition of some of the other tall structures. But
what is this known for, this building?
It houses the Mark Hotel. So the Mark Hotel is a tenant in the building for the first 15 floors, and then there's residential apartments above that.
Okay, and how is your building?
It's fared very well. It's been green stickered within 2 days of the 3 major quakes, although we haven't had an opportunity to go back in after Monday's quake with the engineer and reassess, but we're assuming it'll probably also be okay.
How do you think it's going to be when, when people are allowed back in the city, going into high-rise buildings above, say, 5 floors, what's that going to be like for you?
Well, for me, it's not such an issue because I was on the 16th floor of Pacific Tower when the earthquake struck, and because it's a steel-framed building and not a concrete column and beam building, it's immensely strong. So it has a certain amount of ductility or movement, but I think it could be an issue for other people, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
What's the morale like at the moment among building owners?
Well, look, to be brutally honest, it's taken a bit of a hit since Monday. They're hanging in there. Building owners are residents of Christchurch just like everyone else. You would have seen this morning's poll in the paper, and really we have to be looking at ways of retaining building owners in the city and encouraging reinvestment. So there's a whole raft of issues that surround that, and I've just come from a meeting with the City Business and Property Owners Group, which is a council-convened meeting this morning. We were talking specifically about incentives. So it's very, very important that there be incentives for businesses, for employees and for building owners to encourage that reinvestment. But, you know, everyone's feeling pretty rattled, and understandably.
Anyone sort of think about leaving at all?
Well, flight of capital is a real risk because when buildings are demolished, the capital becomes liquid because the insurance payout becomes a dollar amount which the property owner doesn't have to use in Christchurch. He can use it elsewhere in the country. So for the first time in history, we've got vast hundreds of buildings which have been liquidated, and that capital can move to Auckland or Wellington or anywhere. So there's a real need to retain those building owners and to retain their capital in the city.
Okay. And finally, what do the owners feel about Mr Brownlee's rebuke?
Well, he mentioned sort of subsidies or handouts, but there was nothing in our core submission relating to handouts or subsidies. What we were proposing is a means of financing property owners through low-interest loans. The government is in a unique position in that it can borrow money more cheaply than anyone else. What we were suggesting was that it's going to be very important for property owners to access finance because at the moment there's no appetite among trading banks to lend into the CBD, and unless property owners can borrow to facilitate the reconstruction, then it's going to retard that reconstruction. The Councillor Tim Carter mentioned that the reconstruction will cost $30 billion, of which $10 billion will come from government, but the other $20 billion will come from the private sector. And of that $20 billion, $10 billion is insurance money. The other $10 billion has to be borrowed. So it's an issue that we really have to look at carefully and get right. Otherwise, property owners will have no choice but to take their money elsewhere, a place like Auckland where they can borrow. So that's why we need to get the incentives right and the packages, and also to create some sort of an entity to capitalise the property owners.
Do you feel that you've been supported enough?
Well, we don't have an expectation of being supported. We're a lobby group. We feel it's really important for the future of Christchurch that we keep as much investment in the city as possible, because that's going to create opportunities for businesses, and it's going to create jobs and employment, and it's going to be healthy for the city. But I do feel that there has been a resonance among lots of the other groups for the points that we've raised. And the more awareness there is across the board of the key issues, then that's really all we're looking for.
Okay. And I should actually ask you the main aims that you're wanting from your group.
Well, we certainly need access, although that's been put on hold at the moment. Access mainly for building owners and contractors to get in and start fixing buildings up. And we accept that that's subject to safety concerns and identifying the lowest risk paths in and out of the city. The funding is a key issue, putting the appropriate level of incentives in place, and that's not just incentives for building owners, but incentives for businesses and tenants and incentives for employees. We'd like to see a reduction in red tape and bureaucracy so that building consents can be processed in a more timely manner. Perhaps a review of the per apartment levy to encourage more residential development in the city so we get more people living in the city. And perhaps there's an opportunity to bring some of those people from the suburbs that may be abandoned and relocate them in the city and restore that retail base. We'd like to see better communication with the authorities, and I know that's a concern which is being echoed by people around the city. We just really want to know what's going on and to get a bit more clarity on the timeframes as to when the new city plan is likely to come out so that property owners know their future.
Okay. All right, if people are wanting to get in touch with you, I know that you've already formed this group, but can people still get in touch with C.O.R.E?
Yes, we have a website which is www.corebusiness.co.nz, and that has our submission uploaded onto it, and it has details of what's happening. We have a media section there so that anything which happens in the media, we put it onto the website. We've got a Facebook page so people can make their comments, and we're totally transparent, and we see ourselves and our group as evolving in terms of what we think is needed in the city. We don't profess to have all the answers. We're learning as we go, and we basically are adopting new submissions and new ideas and concepts as we go along, because it's a very dynamic and fluid environment.
Great. Earnest, thank you so much for coming on the programme.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
We'll be back after this break. Now I'd like to welcome my next guest, Anna Crighton, the Chair of the Canterbury Earthquake Heritage Buildings Trust Fund. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
Now tell me about this fund.
This fund was set up by the government, between the government, the territorial authorities of Canterbury, namely Christchurch, Waimakariri and Selwyn, and the New Zealand Historic Places Trust, to bring in or to top up funding for heritage building owners who want to save their heritage fabric, but the insurance will only cover to so much and the actual cost of the work will be higher. So the idea is to allocate grants to fill that gap.
Okay, and where's the money coming from?
The money's coming from donations. Fletcher's have already put in $1 million to kick it off, and the government will subsidise it dollar for dollar. So we've got about $4.5 million at the moment, and applications are able to be made to the building fund, and it's advertised on the Christchurch City Council website on its homepage. You just click on Earthquake Buildings Fund and it'll take you to an application form.
So what makes you the ideal person to chair this fund?
Well, I'm an architectural historian, and I've got a very strong heritage background. I'm also a member of the New Zealand Historic Places Trust Board, who have appointed me to chair this particular fund. So, yes, I feel that I'm fairly well qualified.
Yeah, I think so as well. Now, why is our heritage so important to our city?
Well, on a personal level and on a city historical level and a tourism level, it's extremely important. Most people will have their favourite heritage buildings, their memories and landmarks for them, their tangible stories come out of these buildings. On a citywide level, they make the city unique and make it different. It looks different to Wellington or Auckland, and it's always been highly regarded as the best heritage city in New Zealand. Tourism is huge for heritage. People, the cultural traveller, will go to a city because it's different and exciting, and they can see examples of different architectural.
Yeah. Should we be looking to restore, reconstruct or rebuild these buildings?
Naturally, I would say restore. Restoration is obviously the best thing. With a lot of the damage to the heritage fabric in the city, restoration is not always ideal. What was the other part?
Rebuilding, restructuring, restoring.
Reconstruction is interesting. Where you've got part facade that can be kept or part of a building that can be kept, I can't see anything wrong with reconstructing the rest. It's not the pure architectural conservation mode that you should follow, but in the example of Christchurch, where we're losing so much heritage, it's good to be able to keep recognition of these things. Rebuilding is another, rebuilding heritage or rebuilding new, where heritage was. This is going to have to be very, very careful with design of new buildings. Otherwise, we are going to lose the human scale of the city, and we will lose if we go international without any sort of regional distinction with our architecture. We're just going to be like any other city in the world, and that gives us no identity at all.
What are the most important heritage buildings that we need to retain?
Absolutely crucial. Number one is the cultural precinct, which is the cathedral, the Arts Centre, museum, Christ College, provincial council buildings, our city, and back and over to the Cathedral of the Blessed Sacrament as well. Those are the key buildings that will anchor the city.
Okay. And on Friday in the press, they had the article about, the Arts Centre was 10 seconds away from, falling down. I mean, are we grateful for that 10 seconds?
There would be a lot of buildings that would have fallen down within that 10 seconds. It's been proven that, not just for heritage buildings, but for others as well.
Okay. Now, again, how can people get in touch with the Trust in case they've got a building they would like some funding for?
Just click on the Christchurch City Council homepage and go down to Earthquake Buildings Fund, and click on that and you'll find an application form.
Great. And finally, when's restoration and rebuilding going to begin on the heritage buildings? Any idea?
I think it's begun. It's begun, and it will begin by shoring up and make safety works and propping. The biggest enemy of heritage restoration is haste. Haste, and you can start damage and something's gone forever. So it's just a matter of shoring it up, safety works. You'll notice outside the basilica they've got containers right up the front of the towers now and holding the wall up, and that's to give them time to be able to reassess how they're going to restore that building.
It's like that Ken Follett book, Pillars of the Earth.
Yes.
Cathedral is not built overnight, is it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And really good to have you on City Life.
Thank you.
Welcome back to City Life, and welcome Nick from Rolleston Vets. Good to have you back this week.
Oh, great. Thanks, thanks. Good to be here too.
Did you have a good break away?
Oh, it was a conference, so it wasn't a break, really.
Okay, so it wasn't a
we
holiday.
won't call it a holiday,
Okay.
but it was work, really.
Yeah, all right. Well, good to have you back. What are we talking about this week?
Anaesthesia or anaesthetics, so the agents that we use to put animals to sleep when we need to do procedures on them. Now, this can be, the reason I'm talking about this is it can be a real source of fear for owners, and I want to try and allay those fears somewhat.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we have to use anaesthetics a little bit more often than you'd imagine in the human arena, and that's because, of course, we can't tell Rusty the dog to sit there and be still with his mouth open when he's having a dental procedure done, or that this is going to just hurt a little smidgen, but it's going to be for a couple of seconds and explain what's going on. So we have to use anaesthesia or anaesthetics quite often when we compare it to our medical counterparts in the human arena. Now, a lot of people get concerned that there's a huge risk of their beloved pet dying under anaesthesia, and I want to just totally allay that. In the old days, 50 years ago, maybe things weren't quite as safe as they are today. But today, there's a number of factors that make this a lot less of a problem, and I think that pet owners should rest quite easy.
Okay.
We have a number of different anaesthetic agents that are available, and a lot of the problems have occurred through the older induction agents. And when I say induction agents, I should explain what happens under anaesthesia. So what happens is your animal will be first given what we call a pre-medicant, which relaxes the animal, maybe starts the pain relieving process and drops the dose of anaesthetic needed to then put them to sleep. So already we're getting safer because we've got a pre-med that's going to drop the dose that we need to put the animal to sleep. Then generally what happens is we'll administer one of a number of agents, depending on the situation, through the vein of the animal into the system, which will then knock the animal out and render it unconscious for a short period of time. Under the effects of that agent, we will then usually put a tube into the animal's windpipe and put them on a gaseous anaesthetic, which keeps them asleep for as long as we want to do the procedure. So things are much safer in that regard already. However, on top of that, we've become very good at knowing any pre-existing conditions that an animal has. So if we have an animal that has pre-existing kidney disease, for instance, we may choose an anaesthetic that we know is going to be safer for use on the kidneys. If we have an animal that has perhaps a liver condition and we have to anaesthetise that animal, then we might use an animal that's metabolised much more quickly, and so we don't have to worry about the effects of the liver breaking down the product so much because it's already rapidly broken down. If we have an animal with pre-existing heart disease, we may choose an agent that has less depressive effects on the function of the heart under anaesthesia. And so already now we're getting extra safety nets, right? And then on top of that, nowadays we have extremely good monitoring systems. So while the animal is under anaesthesia, we're monitoring blood pressure, heart rhythm, heart rate, oxygen saturation throughout these procedures. So as technology's advanced, it's diminished and diminished and diminished the risks of anaesthesia. Of course, I can't sit here and say there is no risks involved at all, because there is. But the risks, I think, what people should take out of this is the risks under anaesthesia for their pet that's going to have a procedure done under anaesthesia are probably nowadays equivalent to what you'd face yourself if you're going in for a routine procedure in hospital.
Right, okay.
The second thing I'd like to bring up is that when animals die having a procedure or an operation, a lot of people just immediately assume it's an anaesthetic death. Now, unfortunately, that's far from the truth, that a lot of these deaths can be explained, and let's face it, a number of these procedures or operations are done in compromised animals. We're doing operations on them to try and fix them. We know often they're ill. There's severe problems already. And so a lot of the deaths are not purely related to anaesthesia. They're related to the effects of the illness that they're suffering, or sometimes there's surgical error, just like there is with people. Sometimes we have bleeding and we have things that are difficult to sort out under the operation. And so not all deaths are due to the anaesthetic. In actual fact, very, very few of them. And I did a rough calculation, and I feel personally that in my hospital anyway, I would think that pure anaesthetic related deaths would account for possibly about 1 in 10,000 anaesthesias.
Wow.
So pretty, when you put it into that sort of perspective,
that's amazing.
It's pretty small.
Yeah.
So I think people should be a little bit more relaxed about things, and I think in this day and age that pet owners should really be putting a lot of trust in the professionals that are doing the procedures for their pets, and know that we're well trained in this country, and we know what we're doing, and we're very aware of the risks and obtaining those risks so we can make the best decision on anaesthesia for their pet. I guess the final aspect that I'd like to raise is another aspect that has made things safer is we are now becoming much, much, much better at providing pain relief. Even before we perform or make a cut or an incision, we've already got pain relief on board. And so what happens is when we're masking pain and we've got good nerve blocks and things even before we perform surgery, while we're doing the surgery we're requiring much, much lower doses of anaesthetic as well. So that again is adding further safety margin to this. So all these technologies coming together have made anaesthesia in pet animals an extremely safe procedure. And I think what I say to my clients when they're worried about this sort of thing, I say exactly what I've just said. I can't take this risk down to zero, but what I can tell you is that I perform anaesthesia on probably 3 to 5 animals every day of my working life. And if I'm not concerned about this, then you shouldn't be. And if I'm concerned, then I'll tell you I'm concerned. So, just have trust in your vet and know that we are also on the wave of technology and we're riding it into higher safety.
All right, Nick, thank you so much for coming on the program.
You're welcome.
Now here's Jeff Morton with Cheryl from House of Travel.
Thanks, Kanita. With me today, of course, I have Cheryl from House of Travel, and we're going cruising. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, Jeff. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. Now, you have got some very good deals for us, and we've got a couple of very good cruises. Let's talk about the deals for a start.
Okay, well, I thought for the people who aren't into the rugby, they might like to still get away this year, and we're finding, especially after Monday, a lot of people wanting to get away. So we've put a couple of deals together. The first one, we've got one that's close to home, that'll bring you from Honolulu to Auckland, and one in the Med for those who want to go a bit further.
So the one in the Pacific, that's a repositioning cruise.
It is. The ship has been up, the Rhapsody of the Seas has been up in North America, and it's going to come back down to the South Pacific, New Zealand and Australia for the summer season.
And what would be the normal price of cruising from Honolulu back here?
It depends. It depends on what cabin, of course. There's lots of variations.
Yes.
But these are absolute bargains. So I'll tell you about the cruise first. It leaves from Honolulu.
Yes.
It comes down through the Pacific, through Tahiti. So you've got to stop at Bora Bora. It's beautiful, rich and famous territory. Then you've got Moorea and Papeete.
So these are island destinations?
Yes, they are. There's a lot of at-sea days, which for people that have cruised a lot before, they're looking for those because you get lots of time to enjoy the ship. Ship's a medium-large ship, so it has 2,000 passengers.
That's pretty good.
So lots of entertainment, lots of restaurant options. Everything's included, your port taxes, your gratuities, all your food. You do have to look after your own alcohol bill.
Understandably.
And any optional excursions. But there's not a lot of those because of the at-sea days. So,
So give us a price.
Right. I have to refer today.
Indeed.
So inside starts at $15.38 per person. That's all-inclusive New Zealand dollars. Then you have an ocean view, which really, for this kind of cruise, would be lovely. And that starts at $19.11. And then a balcony at $36.89.
So in actual fact, it's not even a return airfare, is it?
No, and all you need to add to that is a one-way to Honolulu, which is about, without specials, about $1,200. So you've got a fabulous holiday. It's 14 days.
And it's in your back, at the back door, isn't it?
It's lovely.
Fabulous.
Yeah, so you don't have to go too far. The other cruise we've got, Jeff, is in the Mediterranean. It's an Eastern Mediterranean trip on Celebrity. And,
a great line.
I know you've cruised Celebrity before, and it is lovely.
Let's have a look. There we are. Look at that. Take us through. Just tell us a wee bit about the ship.
The ship, that's 2,800 people. It's one of the Solstice class, so it's a very new ship. It has a lot of features. You can do everything. You can learn to dance. You can get fit. You can go to the spa, get beautiful. You can do optional excursions. It's got outdoor pools, indoor pools, whirlpools. Lots and lots of dining options on that particular ship.
The food is absolutely incredible.
Something for everyone. Incredible. You can be casual. They have formal nights, which New Zealanders panic a bit about, but actually it's really lovely to get dressed up. Not many occasions these days to get dressed up.
It is fabulous to do that.
Great destinations on this cruise that it's going to take you. That's just a shot of the main dining room that you can see now. Very opulent, those big cruise ships. But not too over the top, as you know.
Just take us through the cabin, Cheryl.
Cabin, you've got your own bathroom, balcony there, enough room to move around. It's not really tight. Those cabins are a reasonable size.
Actually, they're a home away from home.
Beautiful. Lots of storage. Picture of the ship coming into... I'm not actually sure where that is, Jeff. But the great destinations on this particular, great stops on this particular cruise. You're going to go from Rome... You go through Sicily, you're going to go down to Athens, you're going to go to Mykonos, Santorini, back around through Sicily.
Right. Now, Sicily, you were telling me before, is quite a destination.
Beautiful destination. This comes in on the east coast, so you could go to Mount Etna or just enjoy the actual east coast of Sicily.
So, and then when you get out into the Mediterranean, is there anything special about the two islands, Mykonos and Santorini? Are they different?
Beautiful islands. Santorini is the one you see all the pictures of, with the blue churches, the blue Byzantine churches.
And this is Mykonos.
Yes, that's Mykonos. So you can see all the whitewashed buildings. You come right in there. In Santorini, you come in at the bottom of the cliff, and so you need to go up the cliff on your donkeys or things. So there's lots to do there. I'll just give you a bit of...
There's St Peter's in Rome.
Yes. I'll just give you a little cost on that one, Jeff.
Yes, that would be good.
Because this is a real bargain, this one. These lead in with an inside cabin at $14.73, but you wouldn't even look at that or the ocean view because the balcony's only $16.56.
Fantastic.
Amazing deal. And
that is incredible.
Everything included. Again, your taxes, your gratuities, all your food. And so the only thing, again, is that optional excursion and the alcohol bill.
Indeed, so you need to get across to... it's a wee bit of a long journey to get there.
It is a longer journey, but there's still some good deals,
it's
and
worth it.
A lot of people keen to get away from New Zealand in September and October.
Indeed. So if you're looking for two good deals, see your local House of Travel in Christchurch. There is 10 branches, and I know they'll look after you on these deals.
Thanks, Jeff.
Cheryl.
Welcome back to City Life, and finally on the program, our arts contributor Warren Feeney. Good to have you here.
Hi, Canetta.
What's our focus this week?
It's an exhibition that's been running. Well, it's going to run for 6 weeks. It's out at Art in Oxford. So it's out at Oxford. Mm-hmm. It's on the main street in the gallery, and it's an exhibition. If you want to see work by pretty much most of Christchurch and Canterbury's most important, I guess, or major figures in the arts, this shows it. There's 44 artists, and it's been put together by Philip Trustham and Barry Cleven. And in fact, they started work on it about 10 days after the earthquake on the 22nd of February. And Philip Trustham had indicated he became aware very quickly. I mean, he lost his house during the earthquake, and became aware very quickly that there were no galleries, there was nothing, nowhere where people could exhibit. And so he rung around, got contacts at other numbers, and phoned artists and got as many artists he could get hold of to exhibit. So the exhibition's been put on with the intention of profiling their work and offering them a chance to sell their work as well. So in total, there's 117 works.
Gosh.
Yeah. It's actually a unique show because people never do shows like this because if you go to a gallery, it's curated, so there will be a selected body of work either by one artist or maybe 10 artists who supposedly share something in common. Philip, when he began this show, said, it's for artists, that's the main point. We're not going to look at a theme. I want everybody in it. So it's a huge range of different ideas and practices and sculpture and printmaking, painting. So I guess, there's probably not been a show like this. I was trying to think of another parallel for it. Probably 1974, the Commonwealth Games exhibition. Which was on in Christchurch in the central city. So it's the kind of show that people did do a long time ago, or artists did work and participate in a long time ago. So it's
amazing.
Kind of and it's been very well supported. Hundreds and hundreds of the openings, and I rang the gallery last Saturday. They had 500 people through. So people in Christchurch are fronting up and going out and supporting it,
Who are some of the who are the artists?
Who are the artists? Okay, well, I'm going to read the list of names.
Good, I think you should.
Okay, there'll be lots of familiar names, I'm sure, and some new ones. Bing Dorr, Lou Summers, Marilla Lever, Marilyn Riamenzes, Pauline Rhodes, Jason Gregg, Darren George, Wayne Seib, Marion Maguire, Robin Neat, Sam Mann, Grant Tackle, Nigel Buxton, Ross Gray, Rosa Scott, Jane Zusters, Miranda Parks, Dean Van Roon, Denise Copeland, Rua Pick, Wilhelm Ruafrock, Barry Cleven, Simon Edwards, Linda James, Simon Ogden, Paul Johns, Roger Boyce, Don Peebles. There's still another page.
Oh, wow. I just recognise some of those names.
Okay. Rudolph Belay, Neville Campbell, Katie Thomas, David Wooding, Sandra Thompson, Philip Trustram, Tony de la Tour, Neil Dawson, Eon Stevens, Jane Zusters, Julia Morrison, Scott Flanagan, James Robinson, Martin Whitworth, Andrew Drummond, Shannon Williamson, Helen Calder, Bill Hammond, Denise Copeland, Jason Grieg, Michael Reid, Ruth Killeram, Graham Bennett, Lou Summers and Cheryl Lucas.
Right. I think it's really important that you did list all those names, especially if something like this hasn't happened since 1974.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's very unusual to have all of those people together in one show. You know, as I say, it's not a show people would normally do, so it's very tightly hung, as you'd expect, because there's 117 works, but definitely worth having a look at.
Let's look at some of the highlights, shall we?
Okay, yeah. This is Marion Maguire, and
that's something I would have studied at high school.
Possibly, you're doing classical studies.
Yeah, classical studies.
Yeah, but it's James K. Baxter on the right. It's James K. Baxter orates Homer to Odysseus. So it's a work, it's a lithograph. She's been doing a series of works based on classical Greek, European culture and the way in which that impacts in New Zealand. So here we have a local poet, if you like, with linking Greek legends and myths. This is Philip Trustram. These are 4 works, and these are based on on rugby players. He's been working over the last 2.5 years, actually using rugby magazines as source material. I think these are Super 14 players, and this is a great series. There's some really interesting works. They tend to be either really violent and either sort of battles almost of warriors heading off to war kind of. Or alternatively, they're quite lyrical, and it's almost like the figures can be dancing or in some sort of, theatrical movement with one another. The other part of it, I was talking to him about this, and he said a number of people that had been in visited studios who are keen rugby enthusiasts, they can identify all the players, they know who they are. I mean, I had a look at them. Tane Umanga isn't in this, but he's one that does stand out. So they're all quite specific as to who the various players are. Gosh. It's a great series.
Right.
And this is Rudolph Belay. This is New Zealand Railway Cup, which
I
features...
recognise that.
Yeah. These are 2 other works from that series. So Rudolph's... so it's a good opportunity to talk about this work. Rudolph's a Dutch artist who came out to New Zealand in the early 1960s. And he's always been really interested in New Zealand culture and New Zealand popular culture. And when Crown Lynn folded years ago now, but he purchased the copyright on Crown Lynn. And he's interested in, I mean, this is kind of like an icon of New Zealand as it was back in the 60s, the New Zealand Railway Cup and government support for people and the way in which the government then ran a number of services.
Okay. Wayne
This
Sade,
is Wayne Side, yeah. And this is called Linwood. And there are a couple of other artists too, but there are artists who responded immediately to the quake on the 22nd of Feb and did get involved. And he went out, started painting. It's not, I think, so much a memory as an immediate response to what was around him. He's building at the moment and working on a series of paintings of that.
Okay, Katie Thomas.
And this is Katie Thomas, yes. And again, it's interesting because this series of work, which we talked about, I guess, a month ago, is just an ongoing, really important part and seems to be getting better and better.
Okay.
This is Bing Dor, and this is Eel Across a Hoop. This is a beautiful work, very large piece, and he's, for probably the last 25 years, very interested in conservation and the relationship that people have with the natural environment. Fishing and food gathering are very important to him, but he also makes really beautiful work.
Simon Ogden.
And this is Simon Ogden. These are 3 works by him, and these are worked from lino from lino tiles or lino from the 1950s, where he's cut, pasted them, kind of like a mosaic. And these are really joyful works. You can sort of see there's birds and creatures and animals and things, and they tend to come ebb and flow when you look at them. Easy to see, and then they disappear.
And finally, Linda James.
Yeah, Linda James. This is called the Provincial Council Buildings, and again, this is a work obviously in response to the 22nd of Feb quake. But interestingly, it actually fits perfectly with what she's been doing over the last 4 or 5 years. She's been looking at news images from Reiter of wars and disasters and painted works around them, and interested in the way in which the media present information and the way that an artist can reconstruct that information.
All right, we're going to have to end it there, unfortunately. That's Moving On, Art in Oxford until the 10th of July, 10 a.m. till 4 p.m, Tuesday to Sunday, 68 Main Street, Oxford. Thank you very much for coming on the programme today, Warren.
Thanks.
That is City Life for today. We do have some tickets to give away to the New Zealand Symphony Orchestra's performance of Romeo and Juliet. That's on June the 23rd. So you can email me, kaneta@ctv.co.nz, or you can call us 3777 033. Did you know that we're now on demand? You can watch these videos if you don't manage to catch it in the morning. Go to ctv.co.nz and click on demand. That's City Life for today. Have a good weekend.